Hey guys, Widex Beginner here, everyone's favorite YouTuber who stutters and mispronounces, and today doing a video on the 10 albums that got me into black metal. Late to the party like always I am, because this is a type of video thread response that's been done by a handful of other YouTubers and whatnot, and I guess the reason why I felt like I shouldn't have done it, or I just felt like I wasn't really capable of doing it, is because with all these other people that have done it, they're a little older than me, and they've just been a fan of black metal for, multiple years. And I've only been a fan of black metal, I want to say, since like late 2014, early 2015 and whatnot. So I don't really feel like my picks are going to be all that surprising or eye-opening. But I figured, you know what, why not? Let's have fun with this. And just kind of go down memory lane for me, which was what made this so fun. But yeah, I'm only going to be doing 10 instead of 20 like everyone else, because I feel like at that point, if you know 20 albums by a certain genre, you're not into it anymore. You're a fan of it at that point. So we're just going to leave it at 10. And with all that being said, we're going to start off with the first ever taste I got of black metal, which is Gorgoroth with Ad Maioria Satanis Gloriam. Yep, Gorgoroth is the black metal band that basically popped my cherry for what I would be introduced to. And it's funny how I got to discover this band. And I think it was back when I was a sophomore in high school. So I want to say either the fall of 2010 or the spring of 2011, I was in a geometry class. And, this was when I thought, I knew everything about music that I needed to know. I was always wearing band t-shirts. I was really into, bands such as, Amon Amarth, Cannibal Corpse, not like I'm insulting it by saying this, but like the entry-level death metal bands, that if you know what death metal is, you know these certain bands, so you kind of get an idea of what I was really into at the time. And I was talking to this other kid who was sitting next to me, who was kind of basically into the same thing. He liked his Slipknot, he liked his, Korn, I guess, some types of death metal. He was kind of into Cannibal Corpse. And we're just talking about bands back and forth, kind of geeking out about just really simplistic stuff. And then all of a sudden, the kid that was sitting in front of us, who everyone kind of made fun of him because he looked exactly like Bob Marley, turned around and said, "So, do any of you guys know the band Gorgoroth?" And I'm just looking at him like, what in the fuck did you just say to me? And he's like, yeah, it's like this extreme metal band, I guess, that you guys would like. And I remember I had to actually ask him to write it out, because I just had no fucking clue what he was even saying at the time, pronouncing Gorgoroth to me. And I'll never forget it. When I got home that day, I searched up Gorgoroth, and I went to the first music video they had, which was Carving a Giant. And I saw this. After that music video and song was finished, I just couldn't believe my eyes at what I was looking at. I was just so confused by how they were dressed, the paint they had on their face, the blood and whatnot. And it's just so funny looking back at this band, because I was like, I don't like this. This is too harsh for me. This is too extreme. And I remember the next day going back to school and back in geometry class, and it was funny that actually that kid even asked me, so he was like, "So, what do you think of Gorgoroth?" And I was like, no, it's just too crazy for me. I can't get into it. And though, even to this day, I wouldn't say I'm a big fan of Gorgoroth, even in the slightest, what I'll always just enjoy about them and have respect for them, I guess, and I feel like everyone has it for this certain band that's kind of basically their first experience with any musical genre, I'll always enjoy Gorgoroth to some degree, because they'll always be the first ever black metal experience I ever got. Following that, I would say the next experience I kind of got with black metal that I was really into was back when I was, again, now 14, 15, I was in this Facebook group just called Metalheads, and basically what it was just a bunch of, teenagers, 14, 15 years old, just basically posting, music that was metal onto this page just to discover music. And it's funny because, at least half of it was just Trivium and Amon Amarth and Children of Bodom half the time. But there was always this one kid, I think, named Connor, who would post the most extreme shit possible at the time. He was like the only knowledgeable one, I would say, in this group. And he posted Destroyer 666 with their full length Phoenix Rising. Now again, I'm only 15 years old, so I didn't know what to expect, but I didn't click on it at first, the link, until I saw the comments for it, and he said it's black metal and thrash metal put together. And at that time, I just couldn't comprehend the fact that there were two subgenres merged into each other. I just always thought that you could only be strictly death metal, you could only be strictly thrash metal, you could only be strictly black metal. Like, I did not think you could actually put two subgenres together and have them both playing influences simultaneously. But when I clicked on the link for this album, oh my god, like basically a nuclear bomb went off in my head, because I couldn't believe what I was hearing, two subgenres together like this. So again, I'm only 15 or 14 listening to this album, but I was just blown away by the intensity and riffs and the harsh, vile black metal sound coming through on this. And you know, again, it's nothing mind-blowing now, I guess, for me, but at the time, 10 years ago, I just never thought two subgenres could be put together. And to this day, every now and then I go back to this album because I still enjoy it for what it is. But basically, from what my memory serves me right, it's my second experience and the second album that got me into black metal. Coming up next is Dark Funeral with Secrets of the Black Arts. I want to say I was around maybe 16 or 17 when I first heard this. And I know, when it comes to Dark Funeral, a lot of black metal fans like to shit on this band because they'll never be the harshest, they're never the most atmospheric, they're never, you know, something that's genre defining. And yeah, they are pretty linear with their writing style. It's always got to be, you know, really fast melodic riffs and just blast beats that basically make up 90% of what you're going to hear on the drums. But I feel like the reason why Dark Funeral for a black metal band has such a massive following is because they really connect with death metal fans, because it's not your typical raw, you know, harsh and lo-fi sounding black metal band like other things you would find in the Norwegian black metal scene that usually people would say is like, you know, the entry level and gateway bands for, you know, black metal listeners. And I think that's what really clicked with me with Dark Funeral at the time with all their full lengths, is because it's just so easy to get into if you're a death metal fan, because it's basically, it's played in sounds of black metal, but it's executed in the way of a death metal band, I guess. And, you know, again, I have lost a little bit of love for Dark Funeral because over time I'm just realizing now every album is basically written the same exact way. But I always go back to them every once in a while just for nostalgic reasons, because, again, they were one of the first I really found out on my own. And, yeah, they're just a really easy listen if you're new to black metal, I would say. Next up is Shooter with Desert Northern Hell, another Norwegian black metal band on this list. And just like Dark Funeral, this is why I enjoyed Shooter so much, is because they're not the harshest or the most raw sounding. It's like they have a really crisp and strong and thick production to it that just really complements the aggressive tone they have, and kind of like almost like these thrash metal-ish type of guitar riffs that are spread out within this album. And I remember, you know, checking this out at the time and just falling in love with these guitar riffs on here. Not only that, I would say they had the best songwriting on this album, particularly because the song Mouth of Madness, hands down, is the best song they ever wrote, with all these different tempos coming in and out, and just the aggression and the, you know, the pace between the two different vocal styles on here. It just shows everything they can do with their band within this one song. And even though I have lost a lot of love for Shooter, I still keep going back to this album every once in a while, just like for nostalgic reasons, and the fact that it's just overall a damn good fucking album. Halfway into this list, and next up is Summoning with Minas Morgul. Blah blah blah, all-time favorite album, blah blah blah, blah blah blah, passing of the great company, blah blah blah, blah 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 blah, really atmospheric, blah blah blah, blah 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 blah, blah blah blah. I love this album so much. From there, we go to Dispel Omega with Paracletus. Now, at the time when I discovered Dispel Omega, I was well aware of what black metal was usually known for sounding like, having that raw, lo-fi production that's just really rigid and sharp to the ears. And I was really curious to know what it would be like on the more experimental realm of black metal. And when I was searching up all these different, pages and whatnot to recommend me stuff, like, at least all of them started off with Dispel Omega at the time, and it was always this full length right here that was like the pinnacle, the album to check out of all albums if you want to, get acquainted with, avant-garde black metal. And I remember the time when I checked this out, I was just expecting, raw, really raw black metal with just like these weird abstract, I guess, attributes to it. And when I checked it out, I remember the first opening track of this album just being really bizarre for me at the time. And it was just so weird, and I was just scratching my head the whole time, hearing all these weird guitar patterns coming in and out, these really unusual drum beats coming in, these vocals that were pretty unorthodox for the style of black metal. They were more of a grunt and not really that shriek that I'm used to. And then after the intro track, and it gets into the second track with that blast beat that kicks in, everything just went to cloud 9 of just intensity for me, and it just felt like I was floored. I didn't know what to say. I was just jaw open, mouth dropped, just not knowing what to make of this, as there's just these crazy blast beats, these guitar riffs that are just going up and down and all over the place, and these vocals just cutting through all this chaos and whatnot. And I was just in awe the whole 40 minutes after, and ever since then I've just been such a diehard fan, I would say, of Dispel Omega, as you can tell with these past couple of videos I've done talking about Dispel Omega. And even though they're still like one of the first ever black metal bands that I was still getting my feet wet with just black metal as a whole, it's one of the few that I still keep up actively and still am a big fan of. And speaking of avant-garde black metal, the next band I discovered basically after getting kind of familiar with the styles of avant-garde black metal was Diabolical Masquerade with their third full-length Nightwork. Now, before checking this album out, I was expecting basically the same sound of basically, Bluthaus Nord, Dispel Omega, just, like a whirlwind of guitarists just throwing me around everywhere. And when I checked this out, to my surprise, it was way more straightforward and way more melodic, which really shouldn't have been that surprising to me, since this album was produced by Dan Swano, and he also did the keyboard segments for this album right here. And I would say this is the most accessible avant-garde black metal band that I've ever come across, and this album is just so entertaining, and it's experimental but in like a very refreshing way. Okay, it's not like this weird type of abstract way. It makes their sound very experimental. All these keyboards that dance around, all these weird melodic riffs that are very energetic and very fast-paced just make this overall a very entertaining album. And it was, again, just another stepping stone for me when getting into black metal. And, again, if you're still kind of new to avant-garde black metal, or kind of want, like, the gateway band or the easiest avant-garde black metal to get into, Diabolical Masquerade Nightwork, strongly recommend this. From here, believe it or not, we go to Ghostbath with Moonlover. Oh, come on, dude, I thought we were on good terms now. Oh, boy. Anyway, Ghostbath, Moonlover, I know this is like a what the fuck type of moment, why you're really putting Ghostbath, Moonlover as one of the bands that got you into black metal. But yes, around the time in early 2015 when this album got released, I wasn't truly, like a diehard fan of black metal. I was still, getting used to the style of this music and whatnot. And I think what really just clicked with me so much at the time really wasn't the vocals, that, yeah, it was a little bit different just hearing a guy scream as high as he could in pitch, but it was the melodies that were just so easy to latch onto. And yeah, they're never going to be the most aggressive metal band ever, and it's depressing, suicidal black metal, and this genre does get a lot of shit for it being very oversaturated in emotions that just kind of becomes really overdramatic and whatnot, and I get that. But I always just have a soft spot for Moon Lover just because of the song Golden Number, when that melody kicks in and you know exactly which one I'm talking about, that just has such an easy hook to latch onto. And then there's Death of the Maiden, which is another great track I feel like that has awesome melodies and hooks to it. And yeah, I know this album gets a lot of shit, but I always credit it as one of another black metal albums that got me into the genre. Anyway, moving on to the next band, which is KFR with the debut full-length Anti. So the story behind KFR was back in around 2014 or 2015, I made a video titled Top 5 Scariest Metal Bands, and after that video was uploaded, I had a lot of comments from people telling me who they thought were the scariest metal bands. And I remember someone commented KFR, and they stated that every time they listen to KFR, from its just terrifying and filthy sound that the band spews out, they feel like they need to cleanse themselves and take a shower from all the filth that you'll get from KFR. And just from that description alone at the time, I stopped everything I was doing and searched them up. And I remember it was the song There's a Hole in My Dreams that has a music video with it. And basically this song is like a dark ambient track with black metal vocals coming in and out. And for the first time ever, just with a musical experience, I was genuinely terrified for my life when I was listening to KFR, that I got just such a thrill ride out of this type of emotion and feeling just off of music, that when I was listening to the album in full, from the dark ambient moments to the black metal moments to the moments that have both subgenres kind of intersect with one another, it just gave me such a experience that is like no other, which is just basically being scared to the bone. And final album that got me into black metal is really ironic, because it started the obsession, but now years later I would say is their weakest album, which is Anomaly Rock with their full-length Deseratum. This came out back in 2014, and I still have kept the video because it's one of the first ever track reviews I did on YouTube. And I remember it was the song Idol, and I was hearing just these crazy vocals coming in and out with just, the highs and lows, these crazy guitar riffs and whatnot, these pummeling drums, that I was like, what is next? What could possibly happen within this song? And then the chorus came in, and it was just like this type of operatic type of singing coming through, and I was just like, what in the fuck is going on? There's black metal, there's grindcore, there's industrial, all just like beating the shit out of one of another with this album. And I remember when it was released, I had so much hype for it just from Idol alone, and after listening to the album in its entirety with all the songs, I just fell in love with the album, and it started my obsession with Anomaly Rock. Then I started listening to albums like Eschaton, Hell is Empty and All the Devils Are Here, and my personal favorite, In the Constellation of the Black Widow, and all the other full-lengths by them, that I realize now that Deseratum is easily their weakest because of just how simplistic it is with some of these breakdown moments that kind of ruins the pace and chaos within their writing style. But yeah, it's still one of the first ever black metal albums I ever obsessed over, and I'll always credit it for it starting the obsession with Anomaly Rock in general and black metal as a whole. And that's it for this video right here. Really curious to know what were the albums that got you into black metal. So like always guys, hopefully you guys discovered something new. Thanks for watching, liking, supporting, and subscribing. You guys are the best, and good listens.